What is up, Revivalists? How's it going? Hope you're all well. Simon here from CD Revival, and today I'm going to do my ranking of one of my favourite bands. For me, one of the best thrash bands of all time, Megadeth. Obviously, Dave Mustaine, the main man. Been going for a fair few years, done a bunch of albums, 16 albums in total, and I like them all, to be honest with you. There's not any that I think are bad albums. I think obviously there's some that are way better than others. But all of them I do enjoy, and I think they've all got their decent tracks on there, and they're all pretty listenable. So yeah, going to go through them now. So ranking them from 16 down to 1, 16 being my least favourite, 1 being my favourite. So we're going to start off with my number 16, and that is Super Collider from 2013, and that is their 14th studio album. And yeah, definitely my least favourite. I say I didn't really like. It took me a fair few listens of forcing myself to listen to it to actually enjoy it, and it's got some good tracks on it. It is a little bit it's one of the more commercial ones, and to be honest with you, it's one of the more bland ones, but there are some decent tracks on it. Kingmaker, the start track, is a decent one, probably one of the best ones on here. The title track's quite catchy but still pretty cool. Built for War is quite a heavy one. Things like Dance in the Rain are not too bad either. Don't Turn Your Back's got a cover of Thin Lizzy's Cold Sweat, which probably could do without as well, but it's right at the end, so you can always skip that one if you need to. But yeah, this one is produced by Johnny Kay, and the guitars are Chris Broderick and Sean Drover on the drums, obviously with Dave Ellison on bass, Mustaine on guitar and vocals. But yeah, so I don't hate it. It did take me a while to get into it. But yeah, definitely my least favourite, and that's Super Collider from 2013. My number 15, probably a little bit controversial, Countdown to Extinction. It's their 5th album from 1992, and this one, once again, this is when they started to, obviously this was their answer, if you like, to like the Black Album. Obviously Metallica had done that. I'm trying not to mention Metallica too often in this video, but yeah, they sort of set their stall out with that one, and a bunch of other bands like Megadeth, also Anthrax, decided, oh well, we'll try and be a bit more commercial, try and get that radio play. This one came out in 1992, as I said, produced by Max Norman. He did a few things around that time. Marty Friedman and Nick Menza on guitar and drums, so it's sort of the classic, almost not classic lineup, but I guess it's their best lineup that they had. Menza, a great drummer, rest in peace, and Marty Friedman, obviously a great guitarist. And yeah, why I don't dislike the album. I just think it's a bit bland. I don't think there's any particular standout tracks. Obviously Symphony Destruction and Sweat and Bullets were big singles from that, so it kind of did the business. I think it's their best-selling album. But yeah, compared to the album that came out before it, I remember this being quite the disappointment. Listening to it nowadays, I say it's good to listen to, but it doesn't. None of the tracks blow me away. There's not really a lot of virtuosity going on. There's just a little bit kind of, even the sort of the catchy stuff, I think he got better at as he went on in his career. And you say there's more albums that are probably more commercial than this one, but I think they've got a little bit more things that are interesting in them. Probably my favourite tracks on here, This Was My Life, I think is really good. The title track, Countdown to Extinction, I think is quite decent. Ashes in Your Mouth's not bad. But yeah, it's all a little bit samey for me. You've got High Speed Dirt and Skin in My Teeth, which might as well be the same track as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, a lot of people like this. This was probably a lot of people's starting album for Megadeth, and fair play. If it got you into the band, then great. But for me, so I don't dislike it at all, but I think it's a little bit bland, and it's very much like second from bottom on my list of preferred Megadeth listening. Number 17, I've got Cryptic Writings from 1997. That's their 7th album, and this was produced by Dan Huff, and this is Friedman and Menza again. This is Menza's last album that he did with Megadeth. This is the original version. They've all remastered them all for the majority. The remastered version's got a black cover. And I quite like this album. I say I prefer this quite a bit more than Countdown to Extinction. Trust and Almost Honest are pretty good tracks. Like I say, the catchy stuff is catchier. Use the Man, super catchy as well. Sin's a really cool track. She-Wolf, Vortex, both decent. Mastermind is good. Disintegrators is quite a heavy track. I'll Get Even. But yeah, do enjoy this album. I think it's really cool. I do like Megadeth generally. I think, you know, doesn't matter whether they're doing their real heavy thrashy stuff or their catchier stuff. And the catchy stuff on here, I think is super catchy, and that's why it's my number 14. So yeah, Cryptic Writings, number 14. Number 13 is the much maligned Risk. I've got this one, the original version and the remaster with a different cover. So there's those two there. That's the remaster. That's pretty much the shots from the Insomnia video with the cat. That's the original version. And yeah, a lot of people slag this album off, and it is quite lightweight in a way, although it's got some heavy tracks on it as well. I think the remaster version does sound better, which is a rarity for Megadeth. For the majority of the albums, I will say that it's worth getting the original one if you can, which is why it's good getting the CDs if you can, because the streaming services have all got like the remastered versions of pretty much all their albums, and some of the earlier ones, as we'll come to later, I don't think are as good remastered, but Risk probably sounds a bit better. Insomnia, I think, is a really cool track. It's got a bit of an Eastern vibe on it. Prince of Darkness, really cool, heavy track. Crush 'Em is an interesting one. It is super catchy and it's a bit cheesy, but I think it is. I do enjoy it. The chorus and stuff, I say, you can't help but sing along. Breadline, another really catchy track. Really enjoy that one as well. Wanderlust is good. Doctor's Calling's quite a sort of creepy sounding one. Dan Huff again on producing duties on this one. Menza had left by this. This is Friedman's last album, and the drums are provided by James DeGrasso on that one. So yeah, if you've never heard it, I've seen videos of people who I respect their views, to be quite honest with you, and they've torn this album apart. And to be honest with you, there's no need for that, because it's actually not too bad at all. It's not, you know, super heavy or anything, but there's enough decent stuff on there. I think it's a worthwhile listen, really good album, to be honest with you. So that's Risk. That's my number 13. My number 12 is the album 13. That's from 2011. That's their 13th album, produced again by Johnny Kay. And this one has got on the Ellefson returns on bass, and on the guitar is, excuse me, it does change the lineup quite a lot. Chris Broderick on guitar, Sean Drover on drums once again. So same as the Super Collider lineup. And yeah, I don't mind this one at all. Once again, this is another album which is, you know, has had its knockers. I think it's a bit of a mixed bag of sort of newer stuff and stuff that they've like brought back from like times before, songs they've worked on before. So things like New World Order and Black Swan were sort of older tracks that they've redone. Haven't been on albums, but songs that they'd worked on before. Sudden Death start track, and that's really cool. It was featured on like Guitar Hero, I think Warriors of Rock or something, and that's quite a good heavy sort of track. Multiple time changes. Public Enemy number 1, catchy, good. Whose Life Is It Anyway? Yeah, catchy, really cool. It's got some, you know, stuff like Guns, Drugs and Money, which aren't particularly great, but yeah, New World Order is a really cool track. Millennium the Blind, I think that's another older one. That's pretty decent. Deadly Nightshade, 13 as well. The title track is pretty decent. So yeah, definitely not one to sleep on. It's pretty decent. It's not as good. It's not as bad as people make this one out to be once again. It's not their best, but it's still got some decent tracks on it. It is well worth a listen. The next one I've got is, for my number 11, is Youthanasia. 6th album in total from 1994, produced once again by Max Norman. The classic Menza Friedman lineup. And yeah, carries on from Countdown to Extinction. Obviously is the album that came after that one. Do like this one quite a bit more, as you can see. It's higher up in the ranking. It's got that catchiness, it's got the sort of the radio style, but I think the songs on this one are way better. So Reckoning Day is a good start. Training Consequences, super catchy, really good track. Addicted to Chaos is good. It's got Tout Le Monde, which is a classic one. Elysian Fields, which I do really like. Killing Road, once again, you can't help but sing along to that. Family Tree, really cool. Black Curtains, yeah, good heavy track. Yeah, a really decent album, to be honest with you. I think Countdown to Extinction, I'll go back to that one again. I think they sort of, you know, set the groundwork for what Megadeth would be for the next few albums. But I think the albums that came after it, which sort of followed that blueprint, I think massively improved on the songwriting and just generally, yeah, I think they're just way better. So that's Youthanasia from 1994 in my number 11 slot. My number 10 now, World Needs a Hero. That's their 9th album from 2001. Another album which doesn't get the best reviews, but I don't understand really why. I think it starts off a bit lame, to be honest with you. It starts off not lame, but you know, not the best. This one's Dave Ellison's last album before he came back later on. Jimmy DeGrasso on drums. Yeah. Oh, Al Pitrelli on guitar as well, who's done work with Savatage and some other bands as well. Yeah, first few tracks are not the greatest. Disconnect's okay. World Needs a Hero is not the best either. Moto Psycho is not too bad. 1,000 Times Goodbye is excellent, I really like that. Burning Bridges I really like. Promises is a bit of a ballad, but once again super catchy, do really like it. Recipe for Hate, Warhorse I like. Losing My Senses is another interesting track, which is, I think, is pretty cool. Dreading the Fugitive Mind, which is kind of like Sweating Bullets, but I think better. Silent Scorn, which is an instrumental, kind of almost an intro type of track. Then you've got Return to Hangar, which is like Hangar 18, but not quite as good, but it is definitely a follow-up to it. And then you've got the track When at the end, which I think is the longest track they've done, which is 9 odd minutes. Which is basically, I would describe it kindly as an homage to the track Am I Evil? It does follow the structure of that song quite a lot, and yeah, it's very reminiscent of it, apparently deliberately, according to Mustaine. But yeah, it's I could probably live without that one, to be honest with you. It's okay, but it's basically Am I Evil? It's quite clever in the way that he's done it, in the way that it is, but it isn't, but at the same time, whatever. So anyway, that's my number 10, World Needs a Hero. My number 9, I have got System Has Failed. That's from 2004. It's their 10th album. He had problems with his arm. I don't know, slept on it funny or something like that. Took him a few years to get over it. Didn't know whether he'd play guitar again. And then he was going to do a Dave Mustaine solo album, and the record company was like, nah, you must do Megadeth. So basically that is this. So he came out 2004. So a fair way after World Needs a Hero, and produced by Mustaine and Jeff Balding. And yeah, it's got a few, you know, people helping him out. Chris Poland does the guitars on this. Jimmy Lee Slowass on bass, and Vinny Colaiuta on drums. They never really did much with Megadeth again, but yeah, fairly solid album, this one. Blackmail the Universe, really cool. Die Dead, and this is a bit of a mixture of sort of a bit of a heavier sound and catchier stuff. Die Dead Enough's well catchy. Kick the Chairs, a really cool one. The Scorpion, just yeah, really cool track. Back in the Days, an excellent track. Something that I'm not, I really enjoy. It's yeah, a good catchy one as well. Truth Be Told, there's some yeah mixture of good heavy stuff. Of Mice and Men, that's, you know, you'll find yourself singing that one as well. Mixture of catchy and heavy. Good balance on this one, I think, of the two styles of Megadeth. Essentially a you know, Dave Mustaine solo album, but to be fair, most Megadeth albums really are. He's the one that calls the shots, so you know, if he doesn't like it, it's not going to fly. So no real difference, but apart from, you know, the people in the band were, you know, not really paid up members of Megadeth. Anyway, number 8, we go on to Dystopia, which is their 15th album from 2016. Chris Rakestraw does the production with Mustaine on this one. Ellefson's on it. Chris Adler on drums from Lamb of God. And Kiko Loureiro on guitar. I think it's his first album with them. Say until their most recent one, this was their most recent one. Yeah, decent, heavy album, really cool. Some really good tracks on here. Threat is Real is a good heavy track. Dystopia title track, really cool. Fatal Illusion, Death from Within. Post American World's quite a catchy one as well. Poisonous Shadows is another slower one which I do really like as well. Emperor is, it's not the greatest track, but it is well catchy. You will find yourself singing it. Foreign Policy, the last track, not the greatest either. But yeah, good heavy album, especially this late on in their career. Like definitely my number 8, and a really good album. Number 7, I have got Endgame, and that is from 2009. That's their 12th album. Andy Sneap produces this. Got Sean Drover on drums, Chris Broderick on guitars, his first one that he did with them, and James Lomenzo on bass. It was the last one that he did. Yeah, it's quite like well thought of, this one, and it is a good album. It's got a lot of, I think it's very consistent, this album. I don't think it's got like any like super amazing tracks on it, but I think it's like consistently good all the way through. I think all the tracks are pretty great, and that's what makes it so good. Dialectic Chaos is like an instrumental to start off with, similar to on their So Far So Good album. This Day We Fight, super heavy. 44 minutes is really cool. 1320 to, yeah, that's a really good track. Yeah, Bite the Hand, Bodies, Endgame, really cool one. Hardest Part of Letting Go is a ballad. I like Mustaine's ballads, quite honestly. I think, especially on his later albums, the ballads are really cool. So yeah, it's got some really good stuff on it. Head Crusher. Yeah, it's really, yeah, it's just a solid album all the way through. I don't think there's anything on here that's like, oh yeah, that's one of the best tracks they've ever done. But there's no like filler on here either. It's just a solidly, you know, consistent album from start to finish, which I think is, you know, is good, because there's nothing worse than a top heavy or, you know, albums which like blow their load too early with a bunch of filler. So this one, yeah, worth getting just because it's pretty solid all the way through, really. And that's my number 7, Endgame from 2009. My number 6 is their most recent album, Sick, the Dying and the Dead. Obviously that came out in 2022. This is their 16th album. It's been a long time, obviously, since Dystopia, which is 2016, so a good 8 years. Apparently they were, you know, obviously the whole COVID thing and blah blah, so that kind of delayed it. They've released quite a lot of videos from this one, and yeah, it's a really good album, to be honest with you, hence it being at number 6. I think the title track is okay. Life in Hell, I think, is really good track. Night Stalkers, which features Ice-T briefly, honestly, but it does feature him. That's a really good track. Dogs of Chernobyl, I think, is a superb one. And you've got Sacrifice and Junkie, which are a little bit filler, but you know, they're still okay. Psychopathy, which is a short one. Killing Time's really cool. Soldier On, another really good one. Celebutant is okay, and then you've got Mission to Mars, which I really like, and then We'll Be Back, which is probably one of the best tracks they've done for a long time. We'll Be Back absolutely kills it, man. It absolutely bangs. So yeah, really good return. It was, you know, been waiting for this album for quite some time, and it didn't really disappoint. I think it's a really strong album. The production on it's excellent, produced by let me see now, it's the same guy as Chris, whatever his name is, Rakestraw. I can't even read my own writing. Steve DiGiorgio on bass, Dirk Verburen on drums, and Kiko on guitar once again. Obviously, notoriously, Dave Ellison got kicked out of the band during recording for, you know, crimes of a, you know, salacious internet nature. But yeah, so he did the bass, and then it all got re-recorded. But yeah, production on here is really, really good. It sounds really strong. Really like leaps out of the speakers on you, and the good tracks on here are very, very good indeed. And there's no real shit, to be honest with you. It's all pretty decent. So that's my number 6. So now we're going to the top 5, which are all like super strong in my opinion. My number 5 is their first album, Killing Is My Business, from 1985. Obviously Dave Ellison on bass, Chris Poland on guitar, Gar Samuelson on drums. I've got the 2002 edition, which is remastered and broken. So that's that one. And I've also got the Final Kill, which is the 2018 remaster as well. A bunch of live tracks on there. And that's that one. And yeah, the remastered ones on this are once again are better than the original. I don't have the original. I used to have the original one, like a picture disc vinyl actually, but anyway, that went by the wayside a long time ago. But yeah, a decent debut. Say the original version, like production was kind of poor. They have tightened it up on this one. It does sound a lot better. So yeah, first track, Last Rites, Love to Death, really good. Killing Is My Business, the title track. It's all very thrashy, this one. It's a thrash album through and through, only about half an hour long, so you know, Rain in Blood style length. Skull Beneath the Skin, Rattlehead, Chosen Ones, which is a really cool one. Got a catchy chorus on that one. Looking Down the Cross, Mechanics, and These Boots. These Boots had a bit of controversy because he changed the lyrics, and then the guy that wrote the song originally got the arsehole, and he had to change them for the remastered versions. But you know, you can't really understand what he said anyway, so don't even worry about that too much. But yeah, good debut album. Really, really thrashy, really fast, really heavy. Obviously he was trying to teach his ex-bandmates who, you know, the real heavy guy was. Yeah, a furious and quite brutal debut, and really, really good. So don't overlook this one. So if you've only heard the non-remastered version, give the remastered version a listen, because it is a lot better. You will enjoy it more. And that's my number 5, Killing Is My Business. My number 4 is United Abominations, and that is their 11th album from 2007. A real good album, this one, man. It's got some real good songs on it, produced by Andy Sneap once again, Glenn Drover on guitars, Lomenzo on bass, and Sean Drover on drums. Yeah, there's some absolute bangers on here. Well worth its position at number 4. Sleepwalker to start off with is excellent. Washington Is Next is a brilliant track. Just a brilliant track. Never Walk Alone, A Call to Arms, that's a really cool, catchy one. United Abominations, I really like that. Gears of War has got a great riff on it. The song lets it down a little bit, to be honest with you. It's sort of, it's not as good as the riff might suggest when it first kicks in, and that guitar sound is absolutely superb. Blessed Are the Dead, Play for Blood. It's got a redone version of A Tout Le Monde with the lady from Lacuna Coil, I think, doing it. Probably unnecessary, but it sounds still pretty cool. America Starnes, okay. You're Dead and Burnt Ice, both really cool tracks. Christina Scabbia of Lacuna Coil, in fact, the hype sticker tells me. But yeah, Washington Is Next is an absolute banger. And say the first 4 tracks absolutely slay. So but yeah, really cool album start to finish, and very much enjoyable to listen to. So that's Abominations at number 4 from 2007. My number 3 is So Far So Good So What from 1988, third album. I've got the original version, fortunately, and the remastered edition. This one, if you can get it, I would urge you to get the original one, because the sound has been messed with for the remaster, and even though the production doesn't get like the greatest reviews, I think it still sounds better than the remastered one, which has got odd bits added in. And yeah, so this one was Chuck Beeler on drums and Jeff Young on guitar. And yeah, it's a really cool album. I can remember when this came out. First time I heard this was in the record shop Shades in London, and it came out in America before it came out in the UK, and they had the US import, and they used to play music loud down there, to be honest with you. And I remember going down there, it was like, what, 14, 15-year-old, how old would I be in 88? So yeah, 16. Couldn't afford to buy the import version because it was, you know, mega bucks. And I was only, you know, school age still, but yeah, I was sold on it anyway. I wanted it. When I eventually got it, it didn't let me down. Into the Lungs of Hell is a great intro, really cool instrumental track. Then it goes into Set the World Afire, which is apparently was considered like for their first album. He wrote it quite a long time ago. Absolutely slays, man. That track is like, yeah. It's got some just amazing riffs on it. Like the riff when they do the, you know, Distorted Figures, Walk the Streets is 1999 bit. That riff there is so fucking heavy, man. It's just a really cool track. Probably an unnecessary version of Anarchy in the UK, the Sex Pistols song, but it's honestly not too bad. Mary Jane, really cool track as well. 502, probably the weakest track on here apart from the Anarchy cover. In My Darkest Hour, which is a classic. Liar, which is a really cool, fairly basic but still really cool track. And then Hook in Mouth, super catchy chorus, really cool track. So that's So Far So Good So What, third album, easily my number 3. Once again, doesn't even get the, when it came out everyone raved about it, but nowadays people seem to think that it's not even that good, but it really is that good, man. It's a really cool album, so definitely check that out. Number 2, Peace Sells, But Who's Buying? 2 versions of this once again, the remaster and the original. Probably the original is the one to go for. It's got more of a fuller sound, it just generally sounds better. But yeah, I have got both. 1986 this one came out, it's their second album, quite a decent step up from their first album, to be honest with you. Produced by Randy Burns, Poland and Samuelson once again on guitar and drums, respectively. But yeah, just an awesome album, man. What can I say? If you've not heard it, it really does slay. Wake Up Dead, just a killer opening, super heavy, mega riffs all the way through it. The Conjuring, one of my favourite tracks of theirs of all time. Just an evil sounding track, man, but just really cool riffs once again. Peace Sells, everyone knows, not even my favourite track on the album by a long way. I think it's, you know, but at least it shows you that they were doing sort of radio friendly shit even in that sort of time. Devil's Island's a really cool track. You've got Good Morning Black Friday, which is amazing as well. Starts off slow and then just like speeds up. It's just, yeah, it's super cool. Bad Omen, I Ain't Superstitious, which is the dodgiest track on the album by a long stretch. And then My Last Words, which is a super dark track to finish off. Absolute killer album, what a classic album. And yeah, they were really showing everyone how it was done back then. So that's my number 2. So yeah, the obvious choice for number 1 is the classic Rust in Peace. I've got both versions of that, once again, the original and the remaster. Got this and Slayer's Seasons in the Abyss on the same day, actually. And initially preferred Slayer's Seasons in the Abyss, still is a good album. But that was the initial sort of like, oh wow, that one's really cool. And then this one was a bit of a grower just because it is so complex and it's got so much going on. But this one definitely is the better album of the 2, and obviously my favourite Megadeth album, as it's at number 1. Almost perfect album, to be honest with you. You really, yeah, it's, even to this day you listen to it and it's absolutely amazing. Holy War's Punishment Due, probably their best track they've ever done. Just so many different cool parts of it. Just, yeah, just absolutely rips. Hangar 18, yeah, solo fest halfway through, really incredible. Like the interplay between Dave and Marty Friedman. Take No Prisoners is a really cool track. Five Magics I think is a really underrated track. Yeah, one of my favourites on here. I think it's really, really cool. So it's got quite a long intro, then it goes on, and then the other solo bits on it. It's just, yeah, it's just an incredible track. Poison Was the Cure's really good. Lucretia was the B-side, I think, of Holy Wars, so I've sort of heard that before the album came out. So I had the Holy Wars single. Tornado of Souls, which is another classic with, you know, just an amazing guitar solo in it as well. Dawn Patrol, which is sort of just drums and bass and Dave. And that's kind of quite creepy, sets up the final track, Rust in Peace Polaris, which is a good track, but then becomes a really great track towards the end when it just does its final bit, and it's just absolutely, yeah, immense, really, really cool. Can't really praise this album highly enough. One of the best albums of all time, not even just Megadeth's best album. This is easily in my top 10 albums of, you know, of all time. Certainly metal albums anyway. Probably thrash albums, probably my favourite thrash album of all time, I would say. It's certainly up there, you know, it's in the conversation. Yeah, just an amazing album. Rust in Peace by Megadeth, easily #1. There was no question of that before I started doing this ranking, and yeah, really is an excellent, excellent album. A couple of other things just to mention as well. The Hidden Treasures album is well worth a listen. This one came out in 1995. Some really cool stuff on here, B-sides and cover versions and stuff like that, stuff from movies. So you've got No One Mr. Nice Guy, which is the Alice Cooper cover. That honestly is not that great. I think that was from maybe Shocker, the film, or something. It was from a film anyway. Breakpoint, that was from a film. That was the B-side of Symphony of Destruction. And you know, they didn't put it on the album, but it's probably better than anything on that album. Go to Hell is another one that came out around that sort of time. That's from Bill and Ted. That's way better than anything on Countdown to Extinction. Angry Again, I think, is from Last Action Hero. That's really cool, really good track. One of their catchier ones. 99 Ways to Die, that's a really good one. I think that's from like the Beavis and Butthead movie. That's an excellent track. Cover of Paranoid, cover of the Sex Pistols song Problems. And it's got a few like demos of things like Architecture of Aggression, New World Order, which came out long before the 13 version, Radio Edit to Le Monde. But yeah, well worth checking out this one. It's got some good stuff on there. Even if you've not got Go to Hell, man, it's worth it for that, because that track absolutely wrecks, man. That's just a super cool track. I've got the CD single of Sweating Bullets. And this one's got, yeah, live version of it, live version of Ashes in Your Mouth, live version of Countdown to Extinction. Nothing to super write home about, but that's okay. That's what I've got anyway. Symphony of Destruction, the single, CD single. This one's all right. Well, say it's just got Symphony of Destruction on it. This one also had Breakpoint, which I mentioned, and also Go to Hell on there as well, which is pretty much the reason I bought it. So that's really cool, the CD single of that. Rust in Peace Live. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. That comes with a DVD as well. So yeah, that's worth having as well. 2-disc set. Basically just do the Rust in Peace album like in its entirety, and a few other bits as well, like In My Darkest Hour. DVD extras, behind the scenes footage, band rehearsal, that kind of thing. So that's the entire Megadeth collection that I have. Let me know your thoughts and what your favourite albums are, and write them in the comments below. Thanks very much for watching, and you all take it steady. Cheers.